If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribing will ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome into the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and joining me once again, I have Chef Josh. How you doing today, Josh?
I am fantastic. It's getting a little warm out. School year is winding down. How are you doing?
Doing good. I'm doing good. Everything's going good. About to go on my vacations. Got plural, 2 of them. I'm working like 6 more days before the end of the month in total. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot of driving and stuff, but we got to get packing tomorrow night. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got, do you have like, do you stay at a hotel or a cabin, or do you camp? What do you do?
The event that we're going to first here is going to be a big Verbo with all of my side of my side of the family. And so we're gonna have the cousins there and all the aunts and uncles, and it's a lot of fun. We did it last year. It's gonna be a good time. It's a little bit bigger than the one we had last year, but it's still the same area, so we're familiar with like what we got. We have good access to stuff. And then I have a fishing trip up in Canada. That's going to be equally fun, but that's more of a cabin. Just it's not roughing it, but it's less creature comforts. So.
I understand that. I camp, but of course, I camp in a 30-foot long hotel room that I carry around in the back of my truck. So,
yes. It's not dissimilar to what you have there.
I've had, like, we're doing a couple of camping trips, short ones. I think the real fun is learning what the kids like and going and doing what they want to do, but it takes so much effort to get out of them, like, what's actually happening. And I think the thing that really stumps me up all the time is that I sit there and I'm like, I pester them. I ask them, like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Where do you want to go eat? What's for dinner? Where do you want to go and do this thing? And really, honestly, it's going to take them a little bit of time at each one of these stops to get them to open up and let me know what they want to do. And so I was thinking about that, and I thought, hey, that could really apply to the way that we run games.
Yeah. The topic that you had set for this, Chef Josh, is let them cook. So we're going to be a little bit modern lingo here.
Well, it's my kids, like,
yeah.
They say all sorts of weird things, and I call them out on it. I'm like, that's not actually what they say on the internet. You're just making that up. So
there we go.
Mm-hmm. So if you're not familiar with the parlance, let them cook is current slang for giving a person enough space to get what they're doing done. They could be cooking, which means they're doing well, or they could be cooked, which means they're doing very poorly.
Which means that they're completely done. They got nowhere else to go,
yeah.
basically.
Yeah. But I think that, the whole concept of giving your players enough space to make their own decisions, to sort of play out a scene or to talk amongst themselves is something that I know I've struggled with in the past. Have you experienced
that's something
similar?
that I have definitely struggled with in the past. I mean, there's been many a times. This is something I've made more mistakes of as a newer GM, and I look back at prior to this sort of stretch of games that I've done with the group recently, where I was trying to execute things too quick. And I was throwing too much stuff at the players. and I wasn't giving them the space to sort of let them take the story at their own pace. A good example of like where I let my players cook is in the little one shot I did recently.
Mhm.
And although I had no intention of giving them a different story or anything else, I let them enjoy, what they wanted to do, and gave them space to try and pair open or really pick apart the investigation that was in front of them. So,
Yeah.
I would say that I've learned more to just kind of, a lot of it is go with the flow of your players and let them sort of dictate pace. There is a time and a place to tell your players, hey, like things are happening, time to get moving. But generally speaking, I don't put a lot of consequence on them not taking action or circumventing the real story in front of them.
Yeah. I know that in some more of the tense scenes that I've run, or like things are happening and you want to put a little bit of urgency behind stuff so that it gives your players that sort of feel. Um, what I've found myself doing, and I have to stop and I have to like take a step back, is end up doing a whole bunch of one-on-one sessions. Basically, it's me versus each individual at the table rather than, you know, me versus the group. And it really still shouldn't be like versus. It's just like instead of doing one-on-one sessions, it should be a group activity. Um, but that's one of those situations where you are preventing your players from coordinating or working together or sort of solving problems as a team, which is really what you want here. You want them to, coalesce into a party rather than a bunch of individuals on an adventure separately but together, right?
Yeah, like I think that like what you pointed out there in terms of like a tense scene, there are scenes in which you don't want to let your players cook. Like that would be a bad idea because the scene, it's the mood that you're trying to strike within the scene um would be lost effectively. But I think the overall concept is the game as a whole. So I would assume that beyond a one shot, which would be like the one place where I would say you don't really give them a ton of space to do stuff. Um, Beyond a one shot, you really should be giving your players more agency within the game, or at least more, uh, you know, more chance to kind of dictate the flow of the game.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the agency you want to give your players is in like role playing, sort of experiencing that back and forth that the characters would have, sort of camaraderie, but problem solving, puzzles, um, planning. I've never had much issue with letting the players come up with plans, um, unless they're wildly wrong. Like that's just not how that works, and that's mechanic wise. Um, if they're coming up with random stuff that shouldn't possibly work because the world isn't built that way, yeah, maybe it is. You know what? You're making it up in your mind. It can always be built a different way.
Yes,
But
again, unless the players saw the blueprints, it can always be changed. That's the big thing, that allows you to allow you're letting your players, you're giving your players space. And that's you can do that because your players just don't know any better. And when it's done right, when it's done well, your players don't question the weirdness. Okay.
no,
When it's done
they shouldn't.
poorly, your players will notice it. Believe me, they'll notice it. They'll call it out or they'll do something silly as a result of what you're doing. And your players might do something silly regardless, but they will purposely like challenge you It's almost like you're a bunch of chimps, and now somebody's like realized they can take like the reins here.
Well, I mean, I think to make sure that your players know that they're allowed to do this, we could always throw out those signals, right? We put a battle map out, and players think, "Oh, it's battle day." We make them roll for initiative. They're like, "Okay, these are things we attack." We we put on a funny voice, and we like lean over the table, and we're like, "Okay, we're interacting with an NPC." These are all like very obvious signs of what's happening in the game. Um, and we can do the same thing with role playing sessions. Set the scene. You put them in a position so that they know that, hey, this is a time that we as players can coordinate and work
Yes.
together. Um, I think atmosphere is the big thing for this. I like, if I'm going to do this, I will describe the setting, and it's, I'm not describing a puzzle or a like an obstacle, or like the way you need to go is over there. I'm like, you guys are located at this place. It seems like you've got a minute. It's calm. Um, Things are going on somewhere else, but you've got enough time to sort of think to yourselves and coordinate, and then you let it go, and just like, you have to give them that space.
Yes. I like the idea of kind of setting the atmosphere here. I mean, the idea really is that your atmosphere should convey um the mood generally of your scene, but probably less the urgency of the scene. I like doing that with music in particular, which gives the players more of a sense that they don't have to rush or just find whatever answer is there. They can really explore the situation that you put in front of them and solve things creatively, or come up with interesting ideas and stuff they want to work through.
Yeah, I think very much they make sure that they understand that they've got time. You That's why I said, things are happening elsewhere, but you've got time to figure things out here now. Or, you know, it'll be several hours before, you're supposed to be up for your next watch, or the play is in 2 days and you've got time to coordinate. Uh, just like, let them know. I like,
Yeah,
I run into
that's
this
a really good
problem.
point about time. There is that being able to give them, even if like you are, let's say you're running a very coordinated thing where like you said like the event is happening in 2 days or whatever. Well, your players maybe have already planned out what they want to do, and now they've got this downtime, which gives them that opportunity to really role play and really, you know, take that space that you've given them. Like it's almost free time to your players to figure out what they need to do, whether that be additional planning and utilization of resources, that is the time, or exploring what they want to explore for themselves.
Yeah, travel is a good one too. Like, if you've got a couple of days travel between different cities, you know, I know we like to hand wave away big long travel montages, and like, oh, we're gonna roll for monsters this week and see what happens on your trip. We're like, let's go to the encounters table. You can also just be like, it's gonna take 4 days to travel to this other city, uh, and you guys are stuck together. What are you doing? How you passing the
Yeah.
time?
That's exactly it. And you give them that. You're just presenting them with the opportunity to do something. Okay, and and then you're going to let them. You're going to try to let them work through it, and not influence them one way or another, as you spoke about with your children. So
Yeah. Oh man, that's like my next note on here is just shut up. Just like sit back, shut up, and just see what happens. I run into this situation with my Tuesday game sometimes, is that it's late. We all have jobs. We're we're older now, and there is sort of that sense of let's just get on with this. And so sometimes if you let the silence go on, sometimes your players just don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you should recognize that and okay, they're not into this. We're just going to move on. We're going to do another thing. Um, but sometimes, you let it sit, you let it hang, and just when you've been like, oh, they don't want to do it, somebody else speaks up. Somebody else starts the conversation. And you will only know when that happens if you just shut up, sit back, and let your players sort of figure out it's their turn to shine.
It is really important to let them sort of figure things out. What is interesting is that um, I bring this back to like sandbox games almost,
Mhm.
which is a lot of player motivation to drive the story. Typically, if the players have been given a goal within your game, they will be able to fill in additional activities to get to the goal. If your players are without a goal, and it is like you're like, oh, I'm just going to give them the space to do whatever they want with their characters, that is much harder to do, I have found, because not all players are motivated to do something without a goal in mind.
Yeah, I think that comes also back to setting the scene. Is that if your players they've got a goal, they've got something they got to work for, but now they've got a set of time that they either can't work towards that goal, or and preferably they have to spend with the other players. So they've got to find something to use up that time that involves the other players, and they have to do something together. And that's where the creativity comes in. Like, what can you do that maybe will help you with the goal when it becomes available, or you know, barring that, just like how are you going to spend that free time?
And even if
But
it's just players spending free time doing something, so like for example, like let's say you have a player who's playing a bard and they don't really know what to do with the free time. You're just in downtime, and they say, "Okay, well, I'm just going to go play at a random place in town." Like they don't have a particular goal in mind, perhaps. Based on their performance, you might initiate that, like, oh, by doing this, you've gained some reputation. Maybe you've browsed with a couple people, and now you've got some insider information. So you're starting to get information about things in the town, or maybe a side quest or some side story or something you want to maybe tip the players off to and see if they'll take a bite at it. Because maybe that player doesn't have like, this is a deep role playing moment and I'm trying to work towards something, but they see you're taking their, maybe I'm just wasting this downtime moment and giving them an opportunity to do something with it.
yeah, well, and um, I always like the role playing, uh the player back and forth. So it's not just like one person wanders off and like, I'm gonna be a bard. I'm gonna do the bard stuff in town. Bard, 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 bard. We had this in one of our games. One of the guys went and started performing at a place, and the other guys are like, "Well, we're gonna show up and drink." And when he's playing, they cheered him on, and so I treated that as if the bard was getting inspiration for his performance because his buddies were all there telling him he's doing a great job. He could roll again. Great. And it was sort of that. It was a camaraderie thing, and they got to hang out and do a situation. There was just back and forth. But the other thing I really should have leaned more into, I know we talk about this all the time, is not forcing roles.
Yes. It's a hard thing to do. If you are not, if you haven't GM'd, so if you're new to GMing, you're probably gonna have your players overroll, and if you haven't GM'd in a while, you're probably gonna have your players way overroll. And I'm not saying that like you can't do that because it's part of the game. The dice are part of the game, but have very specific thoughts as to what you want to do with those rolls. Like if your players are on the right track with information, or they're following something, like they're piecing together logically something, let them go. That's the epitome of let them cook. Okay, is that maybe they're having a conversation with an NPC and they're really making some good arguments to you without a roll. All right, don't make them roll all of a sudden. Like they're cooking. They're doing exactly what we're talking about here, which is they're role playing well. They're following a thread. They're becoming friendly with your NPC, and you can sort of judge that, and you can sort of give them a little bit of leeway. Nobody's perfect at this. I'm making, maybe I'm trying to interrogate about the black mage at the end of the tower or something like that. And, it's a weird conversation to have. You don't know how to have that conversation. I don't know how to have that conversation. The dice help me have that conversation, but if I'm making good arguments about it, I'm not being too weird. I'm not like, tell me what you know about the black mage.
Yeah. Well, and like, especially between players, if two players are interacting with each other or more, you don't have to make rolls between them. You don't have to be like, roll for persuasion, roll for deception. Definitely don't do the deception, because that just like ruins things. But
the only time I would say to have them roll for deception is if they actually call it out, like I am lying to my partner, like they just explicitly say it.
Or the flip, like, I don't believe him. Like,
yes.
Okay. And then once again, it's one of those, you tell the person who said the thing, roll either deception or persuasion. You choose, don't tell us which. And you get to roll, insight to sort of figure it out. And based off the numbers, that's where you because the whole thing is really just a it's too much of a tell. It's too much of a hat on a hat. And I think that's probably just a good note for your whole game. Start off in session 0 and say, hey, I will never make you roll or deception or persuasion or ask you to roll insight. You have to ask me. You ask me for that, and then I'll set it up. Otherwise, everything that is said will be at face value, and you can decide personally whether to believe it or not.
I'm just remembering about this deception thing here. There's a scene in our game that we were playing, and we were searching for some documents in a highly secure facility that we had gotten access to, and we're like, we're not going to leave anything here. But we found a book that like required some significant translating and like more time, and it wasn't feasible to take a bunch of pictures of it. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna take the book with me. And so I didn't want the other two to see me, so I literally tried to stealth it and like pickpocket the book. And one of them caught me, the other one didn't. And the one guy's trusting is like a flaw. And so he said, did you take the book? And I said, no, I didn't take the book. And he's like, okay, yeah, I believe you. And then I was like, and then I played the character, and I was like, a couple of minutes later, I'm like, I feel bad. I'm like, okay, so I took the book.
See, that's a fun role playing moment. That's like characters bonding and be like, oh man, he is really trusting. I really do need to like not lie to my friend here. I think that's interesting, and I think that's quality role play, even if it's just something as simple as that.
Yes,
that's good.
It led to a funny scene.
Yeah, that's good. Like, obviously, we talk about the social roles like that, but it also can be like knowledge rolls and investigation rolls and stuff like that. If there's a role playing scene where they're like planning out a like a heist or their maneuvers or what they're going to do to defend the wall or whatever it is, we're going to go in and protect the city from the giants or whatever's happening. And
that is the
none
epitome of a
of
let them cook moment. Like if they're planning, let's say you've given a battle map and they're planning city defense, like they could just make a bunch of rolls and you could tell them what like is the best way to arguably defend the city. Or they could look at the map and they could understand where the armies are supposed to come from and they could devise their own plan. And that is the let them cook moment, which is let them work through the problem just by talking it through, coming up with what they think is best. And, instead of having them roll, like that is the essence of role playing, which is, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. They're going to have a big discussion. They're going to argue about why you shouldn't put the archers in that tower and they should go in that tower.
Well, and I'm even thinking like they we talked about what's happening from the enemy standpoint last week, and nobody took notes. And now they're coming up with a plan that's absolutely not going to work because the enemy's coming from the other side. Um, okay, enemy's coming from that side now, and we'll just like let them figure it out, and we'll change the story, we'll change the setup because there is a lot of this. It is fantasy. It is made up of the spot. We're working this story out. You can let them figure out, even if they come up with something wrong, you can still make it sort of work. Or, not hand wave it away, but don't make them auto fail because they weren't listening before. Don't have a specific piece of information. And if they're willing to sit down and role play and come up with something and work together as a group and just plan something out without your input, they're having a good time. Don't ruin it.
Yeah, I mean that's the again, this is where the real joy of being a game master is watching your players go through and solve the problems that you sort of put in front of them. And then being able to interact or react to those problems and and react what your players end up doing there. And so if your players are going to take the extra effort to not just I'm just going to do it this way and just roll me dice. I just want to roll dice. I don't care. Just get me to the next combat scene. Roll dice, roll dice, roll dice. Okay. If that's all they want to do, you as a GM might start thinking to yourself, okay, maybe I need to come up with some other ways to get the players to engage with other parts of the story that aren't there. And when your players are really invested, and like this is again, I'm going to the title here. Literally, they're working on something. They've got a plan. It might be a bad plan, okay,
Yeah.
but they're working through a plan. They're talking it out. They think this is a great idea. They're getting really excited. They're kind of jumping around. Somebody yells out, "No, that doesn't work this way." Those are the things that let you know that you're really kind of doing a good job. That your players are keying in on stuff, and that they're really, really engrossed in the situation that you've put in front of them. Take note of those situations too, because those are the situations that your players will likely engage with in the future as well.
Yeah. I think that in order to make these things happen more organically in stories, we do need to spend more time with our players, like on their characters, making sure that they've developed a decent backstory. They've got a personality for the character. They understand where the character's coming from. But then, introductions, that whole session zero where players get to meet each other and understand each other is very important. When you get to a situation, when you get to a scene where they've got that time, where they've got that space, if there's a puzzle, or if there's like a social situation or some history or lore, you might suggest that you guys have heard that Dave had mentioned this in the past when he was talking about things, that he may have come from that area, or you know, Susie was once involved in uh, the routing of the necromancers from the north, and something, and then just step back and let your players figure it out. It's reminding the players of each other's backstories, but like in little ways. You don't want to just like hand it over. You want your players to share that and expound upon that, and let your players sort of. I think if the backstories are outlines, this works better, because then the players can go and freestyle some facts and interesting tidbits into the world that way, as long as they know they're allowed to. And this is very much up to you. This is one of those situations where you are not telling you're not like reading a novel. Your players should have some say in the way that the world is built, even in small ways. You can control the narrative in terms of where the story is going, what's happened to them, what scenes they're going to be in, who's attacking, how it all turns out. But their own personal histories, you can let them expound upon, as long as it's within reason. And letting your players have that agency allows them to take their outlined backstories, expand upon them, and that can build up a more interesting narrative, especially between, in these role-playing sessions, in these times when, like, hey, we've got a thing to do, and you might have some experience with it. Let's find out what's going on.
Yeah, that isn't to say that you can just write anything into existence that is not already like on the backstory itself.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it is fun to sprinkle in something like that, like through narrative, that maybe you do possess some knowledge of some skill that, like, that might be useful in this scenario. Okay, but that wasn't explicitly written down your backstory. Again, your backstory, the completeness of a backstory is probably that's almost impossible to do. Again, you can't write everything down. You don't know everything about your character's past. But I think it's interesting that if you were to encounter a situation and maybe one of the players expands upon, like, hey, don't you have experience doing this? And it wasn't written in your backstory. Maybe you don't, but maybe you do. Like, now, maybe you do. You can sort of talk about, that tangentially. But again, you can't have that be like the ultimate, like, be all end all save to everything. Your players will pick up on that and start abusing it.
Yeah. I think there is a storytelling session feature that they use in Daggerheart, and I really got to sit down. We gotta play some Daggerheart.
We got to play it.
Runs.
Yeah.
But there is a bit in their mechanics that allows for better healing or better like coordination between players when they've taken during a rest. Like, they share backstory and they can share secrets, and they are like little bits and pieces. They have to be of a certain size, and it doesn't have to be pre-written. And I think all that's really interesting, because it promotes that sort of behavior. But once again, I want to see it in practice, and I want to see how it actually works. But I like the idea of using that as a narrative device. And we talk about giving our players clues into what they're allowed to do within a game. And we've got our session 0 where we explain things out. We have expectations of, like, I'm not going to make you roll for these sort of things unless you ask for it. We make sure their characters and backstories are built in a certain way to allow for this sort of behavior. But you can even go so far as to, like, early on, have an NPC that maybe doesn't trust your players and requires your players to each share some personal history, as a way to like bond each other. And so your players would go around the table and give like a little, like, what was the worst thing you ever did, um, which at this time I don't think the drama is out yet. Have you heard of that movie?
No.
Don't. It's good, but like this is not that sort of thing. Don't let your players go that far. Um, that's one of the games that they play in the movies. Like, what's the worst thing you ever did? And everybody gets to go around and tell a little thing. It should not be horrible. It should not be terrible. The worst thing you ever did is probably a bad thing to do. Like, tell me a time when you saved a puppy would be a much better thing.
Uh-huh.
In fact, that's probably the game I'm going to make my players play. Tell me a time your character saved a puppy.
Okay, there you go.
Especially evil players. Like, hey, when did you save a puppy? It was awful.
No, again, I'm going to kind of jump ahead here in your notes too, but that sort of system of being able to sort of like speak something that was not explicitly stated into existence is sort of a reward unto itself. Like, by doing it, you're giving your players the opportunity to not only one, solve a problem that may be in front of them, but two, that is explicitly a reward to your players for excellent role playing. So, that is a good way to encourage this in the future, which is give them something.
Yeah.
Everybody likes shiny new toys.
Well, and like it can be something as simple as like a minor skill. Like, you may not have playing the flute on your sheet, but you used to sit around late at night when you were a soldier in the army and you'd listen to old Dave play his flute around the campfire, and you're telling the story to your party mates, and like, oh, well, you picked up some things from him, so if you had a flute, you might be able to play a couple of notes. You don't have that on your character sheet, but if you ever needed to, you knew how it worked. So you come across the flute of dragon calling, and you're not completely inept at it. And it's just a bonus. It's a thing like, hey, Dave showed you how to hold the flute, and you're able to do something with it. But yeah, adding a little bit of backstory and making it part of your character story on the fly as it goes, I think it's fun and interesting. As long as your players do it within reason. They can't be like, I remember when my dad created
you can't work yourself out of every situation by being like, hey, don't you know how to fly an airplane?
Didn't you know my dad created the sword of the big bad evil guy slaying? He kept it underneath his house and gave me the key when I was a child.
Oh, we happen to have this broken sword. It's a good thing I'm an amateur blacksmith.
Yeah. Like, I know this is a fantasy realm, but I studied quantum mechanics as a child.
Elven craftsmanship. I used to live amongst the
why, I'm sort of a Jedi myself. And yeah, but it's definitely one of those things.
Weren't you playing a scoundrel?
I have no idea what you're talking about. But like, I really enjoyed when my players showed up at the bar and they were cheering on the bard and giving the bard bardic inspiration because the crowd is giving it to him, right?
Yeah.
But I think that sort of idea also works really well here, is that when your players do make connections, when they work together, when they like share something, yeah, you should give them a reward. And it doesn't necessarily need to be an individual reward. Like, yes, you know how to play the flute, or you know how to hold a dagger, or like whatever it is. You can sew up a wound. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up now. But it could be, you're in sync with this other person and can coordinate your moves in combat, or uh, if there's like some sort of jumping situation, like you're on a cliff's edge and you're scurrying along the edge and a wind blast blows and Dave starts to fall and he loses his grip. But Susan, who shared with him last night how some backstory, maybe she gets an extra roll now to make sure he can grab his hand, make sure it doesn't fall. Because they've created that connection, because they've have that friendship.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are all good examples. Again, these aren't game-breaking things. They're
game enhancing things.
Yes, they're you might be listening to this go, well, you're just letting your players circumvent. You have to give your players a couple of freebies here and there. Okay, generally speaking. So let's say you play games like, let's say you don't manipulate anything behind the GM sheet. You have to give your players some outs. Okay, and this is a good way to give your players outs. Okay, and this is like, and they've done it. They've earned them, and now you're gonna give the players, like, again, outs. You're gonna allow them to get out of bad situations by giving them these little things. So I think that they're very, very useful.
Yeah, but the only way you're going to get to that point is if the characters have actual characters to them, and you give them enough time to come up with this stuff. You just need to let them open up. You need to let them sort of figure out the scene and work within it. And you got to step back and let them do it. And then it's up to you. Once they've cooked, then I guess it's time to eat. That sounds awful. I feel bad.
Well, that's how we're going to end this podcast. I'm not giving you an opportunity to redeem yourself.
No.
All right, see, I'll let you cook one more time, Josh. So you aren't cooked before you end this podcast.
I think it's important that if you're going to let them cook, it'd be really nice if they were to spill the tea. No, damn it.
All right, well, that'll wrap us up for this episode. So if you have thoughts on maybe giving your players, letting them cook, how do you do it? Let us know. levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. The podcast is on your favorite podcast site or on YouTube. So whatever your listening medium, you can find us there. Like, subscribe, review, recommend to a friend, all those good things. And that wraps up for the week. So for Josh, I'm Aaron. Have a good week, everyone.
Bye.